Hi there, travel lovers. Is your trusted cruise and Tauck tour and safari expert Shawn Power here. I wanted to talk to you today about Tauck's small ship ocean cruises. Now, a lot of I've talked about Tauck before in other posts, and I certainly will put some links underneath this video to some more in-depth details about who Tauck is and what they do. But a lot of people, when they deal with Tauck for the first time, they either end up doing one of their land tours, because again, Tauck started almost 100 years ago, and land tours is how they started. So a lot of people end up doing Tauck because they've heard they've got great land tours. And then also, probably the last 30 years or so, Tauck has been doing river cruises, which are quite popular. A lot of my personal clients first try a Tauck trip through a river cruise. So a lot of people hear about Tauck river cruises, a lot of people hear about Tauck land tours. But a lot of people don't realize that Tauck also does small ship ocean cruises. And the reason I think that a lot of people don't hear about them is because, for one, they don't actually have a cruise line. So there's no Tauck ocean cruises, for example. What they do is they actually charter space in other ships. So I would say probably a good 80% of their cruises are with a French company called Ponant. Now, Ponant is not a company that I recommend that you normally cruise with directly, because they're a French-based company. Most people on board are going to speak French. If you want to meet other people on board, there can be some language barriers. Their food is, catered to a different market. They don't include very much in their prices. So it's just not a very good cruise, not something I would recommend. But with that said, I have been on 3 Tauck ocean cruises on Ponant, because what they do with Tauck is they typically charter a Ponant cruise. I think pretty much when they go with Ponant, they charter their full entire ships, which fit around 200 people or so on average. Unless you're going to Antarctica, I think there was maybe 40 of us or 80 of us, I can't remember. But the point is, it was a partial charter Antarctica, which I think they always do, and then for all other destinations, I think they chartered a whole ship. But the point is, Tauck doesn't have a cruise line. They're going to charter space on Ponant. They also do that with a few Windstar ships. There you might be talking, so like I said, Ponant's usually around 200 people. I think a couple of their ships a little smaller, a couple a little bit bigger, but we'll call it around 200. Windstar, I believe, is more maybe around the 100-person mark. Some of those sailing yachts that you hear about with Windstar, Tauck will charter those. They also have a few Silversea ships that they charter some space on in the Galapagos. So just a 100-person ship. I think they might take 40 people on board there, maybe only actually 20 or 30 now that I think about it. They do have a couple of destinations. I think one is in Canada and New England, and another one in Europe, where they're on Silversea ships that fit about 300 people maybe. So the point is that Tauck only charters space on ships. They don't own ships, so they're not advertising cruise lines like you see a Regent or a Silversea or Ocean or Princess or Celebrity or whoever. So basically, a lot of people don't realize that Tauck does these ocean cruises. But like I said, I've been on a few of them myself, and they're really, really, really good cruises. Now, I don't think they're for everyone. And at the end of this video, I'll talk about specifically who I don't think they are for. But I definitely think they are for some people. And so for one, a lot of my clients travel with Tauck. About 40% of my business is with Tauck these days. So for anyone who's traveled with Tauck and loves traveling with Tauck, they're going to really like their small ship cruises. Because like every other Tauck trip, it's 100% about the destination. So what I mean by that is, if you've done a Tauck trip before, every single excursion is included. And unlike, say, Regent and Silversea, who include excursions, they don't sell a lot of optional stuff, which could cost a lot more. Tauck's philosophy is, if you're meant to see something, they're going to include it in your price. So it's a very destination-focused trip. So for example, when I went to Iceland with Tauck, it was a 7-night cruise around Iceland. I think maybe we sailed for one afternoon, and the rest of the time we were in port exploring. It's almost like a river cruise. You're just exploring all the time, very little sailing time. So, they did a lot of sailing at night, but it's not like a regular ocean cruise where they might keep you out at sea for 2 or 3 days so you can go to the casino and those kind of things, because they're on ships that typically don't even have casinos. So again, it's all about the destination. And as we know, anyone who's been with Tauck before, they really do the destination better than anyone. Again, they've been going to these places for 100 years. Again, I'll put some links underneath to my other, why go with Tauck videos. But basically, they truly have the best guides in the business. They give you more attention, which I'll touch on here in another second. But again, if you're really a destination-focused person, this could be a good idea for you. If you're more about the ship, I don't think this would be for you, and I'll talk about more of that in a minute here. So like I said, if you're destination-focused, definitely consider going with Tauck, because they do include every single excursion for everything you want to see in that area. Now, another thing I like about Tauck is they do a lot of exclusive things on land, and I've talked about this in other videos. So again, let me just think back, like when I was in Iceland, for example, I remember we had one day where we went to this, I think it was almost like this tomato greenhouse where they literally grow tomatoes, and they have like a tomato restaurant in there where they had like tomato soup and different, tomato, infusions throughout the dishes. And then like in the back, they have this private horse show that was like only for Tauck guests. And so the point is, if you travel with Tauck before, you know what I mean. Tauck always has something private at least once or twice throughout a trip that you're just not going to get elsewhere. I remember going to Antarctica with Tauck, to go down and, see Antarctica, get on the, the Zodiacs and stuff. But before we got on the ship, we started in Buenos Aires before we flew down to Ushuaia. And, Tauck put us up in a hotel for a couple of nights in a beautiful part of Buenos Aires. They took us all around the city. They took us to a private tango show. Again, most other companies are going to get you to go to Buenos Aires, spend the night, you fly to Antarctica the next day. Again, Tauck includes some extras because, again, they always want you to see what's important in an area, and they want to give you the, that flavor. So just know not only does Tauck include the excursions, like I said, they're always going to maybe have something that's a little bit exclusive that you're just not going to get to, try with anyone else. Now, another thing, and again, I've been on almost 100 cruises, so I've tried everyone out there from Regent to Silversea to Explora to Crystal to Oceania to Seabourn to Princess, Celebrity, Carnival, you name it. I've been on all the cruise lines and all the river cruise lines. And, shore excursions are a big part of a cruise. And, we fly thousands of miles halfway around the world sometimes to go do tours to kind of see what an area is like. And one of the most disappointing things that I hear consistently from my clients, and I've seen on my own cruises, is shore excursions. I would say maybe 50% of the time the excursions that the cruise lines offer are good, and 50% of the time they're so-so, or they're just really bad. And if you don't believe me, the next time you go on a cruise, go to the shore excursion desk when the tours are coming back. I guarantee you will hear people complaining. And it doesn't matter if it's Regent, if it's Silversea, it could be the best cruise lines in the world. The number one complaint I get from my personal clients is always about shore excursions. But that never happens with Tauck. I found on Tauck you never ever have a bad tour. Now, how's that possible? Well, let me explain. If you go on a Tauck small ship cruise, they have a bunch of what we call Tauck directors on board. So let's go back to that Ponant example. Again, I've been on 3 small ship cruises with Tauck with Ponant with about 200 guests. So what Tauck does is they have 6 what we call Tauck directors on board. Now, just like every other cruise, you have your hotel manager, you have your front desk staff, you have your wait staff, you have your room staff, you have everyone like a normal cruise. But Tauck brings an extra 6 people on board. Now, one of them is kind of like their cruise manager who stays on board the whole time. They're coordinating everything with the ship, making sure that the customized food schedules or the food menus are being taken care of. They kind of coordinate timing. If the captain has a delay of the ship or something, they rework the schedule. They're just the liaison between the company, so say Ponant, and the Tauck guests. So the cruise manager stays on board. But the other 5 Tauck directors go on tour with us. Now, this may not sound like a big deal, but it's a huge deal. And I've seen this again and again because I've been on, 11 personal Tauck trips, and I see how much of a difference it makes. So basically, think about this. When you go on any other company, Regent, Silversea, it doesn't matter, Carnival, Royal Caribbean, whoever, you book a tour, a shore excursion through the cruise line, and you go off the boat, you meet a local guide, and you go. Now, no one from the cruise line goes with you. Don't get me wrong, now and then you might have a staff member who's taking the day off and they're going to check out a tour, but they don't send an official representative of the cruise line to kind of supervise the excursion with you. But Tauck does. So Tauck always sends their guides on each excursion that their guests go on. So here's what I've noticed. The best guides show up. So like when I've been on other companies, there's many times that we go on a tour and maybe unfortunately the guide just doesn't speak very good English. Now again, that's not their fault. We're the ones who can't speak their language. But the point is it's hard when we go to a place and we want to hear about it. If we can't really pick up their accent or they just don't have good English, it gets very frustrating for people. I hear people complain about that all the time. So basically, that's one of the issues. Sometimes these guides act like they don't hear. They're playing on their cell phone. I've literally seen it all. I remember being one time in, I think it was like Israel, and we were there for 3 days. And one day we had the best guide ever. He was like a scholar. He'd been doing VIP tours for some of the, most, top officials, government officials around the world, people, some stars and everything. And then the next day we had a guide who was literally playing on his phone and never said 5 words. It was such a inconsistency. But Tauck doesn't have that, because you think about this. When the local tour company knows that Tauck is coming to town, and they know there's going to be a Tauck director, that's what they call their guys, Tauck directors, who are really, really great at what they do. They know they're coming with them. Well, they make sure they send a good guide. You wouldn't believe how many times I've been on a Tauck tour where all of a sudden we get introduced to the guide and they're like, hey, this is the owner of the local tour company or whatever. They always seem to send their best guides because they know the Tauck person is there kind of watching them. Now, again, they're friendly. They're not, there to pick on them or get them in trouble, but they're just there to make sure they do a good job. And if anything goes wrong, the Tauck person can pick up the slack. So it makes a huge difference. I've literally never had a bad shore excursion with Tauck. And it's such a difference from, like I said, a normal cruise. And again, you don't need to take my word for it. Just go to the shore excursion desk at the end of a day on any cruise, and you will absolutely hear complaint after complaint after complaint. I see it all the time. So getting all that extra attention is awesome. Also, all those Tauck directors, they're just, on board the ship. Like I remember being in Antarctica. Now in Antarctica, I think there was only 2 of them, because there was only, must have been 80 of us, I think. So for about every 40 guests, they're going to have a Tauck director. But the point is that I remember they just hang out with us during the day, and we'd be like, I don't know, whale watching, bird watching, whatever, and they knew everything. They were pointing out, they knew where to look, what to see. So again, on a normal cruise, the staff is working. They're like serving drinks, they're doing this, they're doing that. They don't have the time to stand around and tell you what's what and, help explain what you're seeing. But they do that on Tauck. So like I said, it just makes everything a lot better because you get a lot more personal attention that you do not get on the other companies. Makes a huge difference, and the overall quality, like you just know when you go with Tauck on a small ship cruise that you're just going to get that much, extra attention. Now, the other thing that is a huge difference on Tauck small ship cruises is the inclusions. Now, don't get me wrong, I've talked in other videos, and if you're a client of mine, I've told you that Regent is all inclusive, and Silversea is all inclusive, and Explorer and Seabourn and Crystal. Again, the difference between those 5, Crystal, Seabourn, Explorer do not include shore excursions. Regent and Silversea include a lot of shore excursions, but not all of them. But Tauck literally includes everything in their price. So Tauck includes all airport transfers. Again, I even did a video on this, like how good Tauck's transfers are, because they're the most liberal transfers you're ever going to see, where whether you book the flights or not, they're going to include them. Even if you don't book the hotel through them, they're going to include them. Again, I'll put a link to that video underneath here. But no other company does that. They only give you airport transfers if you buy their flights, which are usually not a good deal. So like I said, Tauck is so much more inclusive because they include the airport transfers. They always pretty much include a hotel stay. So like if you look at, like again, Antarctica, we had 2 nights in Buenos Aires included pre-cruise. When I did the Venice and Dalmatian coast with Tauck, we had 2 nights in Venice pre-cruise. When I did the Iceland one, now that one doesn't include a hotel for everybody, but if you're a past guest and you book early enough and you know what the gift of time is, you're going to get a free night in Reykjavik. Or if you're a first-time Tauck cruiser, by booking through someone like me who's a certified Tauck agent, I can get you a free night. So almost everybody gets a free night. So the point is with Tauck is like you get pre-hotels with their cruises, a lot of times post-hotels. Again, you're just not getting this on other cruises. Again, someone like Regent, if you book a concierge room or above, you will. But with Tauck, I'm talking all guests are getting these inclusions. So it makes a huge difference. Even gratuities. So like, again, yes, Tauck tips everybody on board the ship. But when you go with Regent or those other guys, they don't tip their shore excursion staff. So they expect you to tip those guys. Again, they don't include airport transfers. So they're definitely not tipping the drivers. They're not including hotels. Well, even if they do include hotel pre and post, I know they're not tipping the bellman and stuff. Tauck tips everybody in the price of a small ship ocean cruise. So again, you're not going to tip a driver, a bellhop, anyone at all. It's literally all included in their prices. And again, their prices look higher, but this is why they include so much. I mean, if you look at the average Tauck trip, I think it includes like over 100 items. It's just unheard of. So people love those inclusions. And again, all the normal stuff when you're on board, they're going to always include the Wi-Fi, the drinks, and those kind of things. I remember the one time I was on, so again, twice I've been on Ponant with Tauck, we had the whole ship. But one time I think in Antarctica, there was people on directly who booked with Ponant and then us. Well, we had our own special Tauck menu where we could get drinks on board. They were all included in the price. We were drinking Veuve Clicquot, champagne and everything. And again, the Ponant people had to pay for the drinks. They had to pay for the gratuities. They had to pay for their Wi-Fi. we had it all included. So yes, Tauck is charging more upfront, of course, but again, you don't need to worry about all this nickel and diamond on the other end. So, hopefully that kind of gives you an idea of why you may want to cruise with Tauck on their small ship cruises. Again, if you want absolutely everything included in your price, they check that box, including, hotels, a lot of times pre and post. At the least, you'll probably get one night pre because either you've booked through me or your own travel agent might have the same deal, or again, they just may have that included in their price, depending on the itinerary. So if you love all those inclusions, look at Tauck. If you want to really, really, really have a destination focused experience, that's what Tauck is all about. So they're going to include every single excursion, and it's going to be done in a great way with guides on tour with the local guides, which just make it that much better. And again, they do some exclusive things now and then as well, which no other company does. Again, Tauck's been around 100 years. So like I said, they really have some, some access that other companies just don't. So that's who this is for. You want all inclusive, you want a great destination experience, and you want those guides on board who are taking care of you every step of the way. Now, two people who I would say do not want to do a small ship ocean cruise with Tauck. Number one is people who are more into the cruise experience. So what I mean by that is about 80% of Tauck small ship cruises are with Ponant. If you're a cruiser who loves a beautiful ship, Ponant ships are not fabulous. Again, I've been on 3 of them. They're nice, but to me, they're more of a river cruise. There's like one main restaurant, one main lounge. Depending on the ship, there might be like a second lounge, which was hardly ever open, and a second restaurant, which is literally a copy of the first one. It's just if it's a nice day out, they'll serve the same food upstairs. And so there's no specialty restaurants. There's no, different restaurants. Yes, it's a main restaurant that changes their meals every night. But like if you like an amazing dining experience with like the 2 or 3 specialty restaurants, and you're just not going to get it. These are small ships, not a lot of kitchen space, so there's not a lot of food choice. And again, the Windstar ships are pretty much the same. When you've got a 100-person ship, these are very minimal choices. So again, if you're a foodie and you want one of those amazing food experiences, you're probably not going to get it with a small ship Tauck or a small ship ocean cruise with Tauck. The other person is those who love a good room. Like I have clients who like the 1,000 square foot rooms, the 2,000 square foot rooms and up. You're not going to get that. Again, if you look at these Ponant ships, I think 85% of the rooms are like 200 square feet. That's like smaller than going on a Carnival cruise. Now, again, they're destination focused. So all my personal clients who go on Tauck, they're going for the destination. They don't care that the room's a little bit smaller. Same with me. The 3 Tauck cruises I've done have been wonderful. It's okay. But if you want that big room, it's not going to happen. Now, they do have a few suites on board those ships, but like you've got to book immediately, like 2 years out to get one of those suites, or like a year and a half out whenever they bring out their dates. And I think the biggest is about 450 square feet. Not big at all compared to people who really know the suites and cruising. So again, if you're all about the cruise and the destination is secondary, don't go with Tauck. If you're about the destination and the cruise is secondary, Tauck could be a really good choice for you. So anyway, I hope that summed it up. Again, today we talked about Tauck small ship cruises, what makes them unique, who they're for, who they're not for. I certainly hope that gave you some value. Any other questions, leave me a comment below, or just go to my website and shoot me a message and I'll do my best to help you out. And beyond that, I hope you got some value out of the video today. Have a great day and we'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.